Hello, and welcome to the Victory Podcast. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever time you're listening to this. I am your host, Monique Watson. On this episode, I sat down with my new friend, Zaneta Blackmon. We talked a bit about food science, how she got into that career, and then we went on, I wouldn't even call it a tangent, just really explored a deep conversation around a lot of things in society that really run the gamut of politics, DEI, and everything in between. So turn up your volume and I hope you enjoy it. So welcome to the Victory Podcast. I'm your host, Monique Watson, and I have today one of my newest friends and colleague, Zaneta Blackmon. How you doing, Zaneta?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Doing good, doing good. So we have Zaneta on today. We've recently and we'll talk a little bit about this, and I'll tell you a bit of where we're going today. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself, talk a little bit about how we know each other, and then we'll talk about Zaneta works with me and a different area, but we work in the same company, and we'll talk a bit about her career and how she got into her field, what are some challenges, and especially with it being Black History Month and highlighting Black voices, and especially folks in the STEM field, kind of getting her thoughts and that perspective and that lens, and any other comments that float through during the course of the podcast. When we talked on a kind of work connection meetup call, we ended up talking for a great length of time. So it's like perfect for a
Yeah.
podcast setting. This is the way. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Zaneta.
So my name is Zaneta Blackmon, as you introduced me already. I am a food applications technologist. So I'm a food scientist by trade. I work um, in the dairy applications. So now that at the company that we were working for, I actually flavor dairy products as well as working with natural colors. So in all like sweet foods, so cereals, bakery, confections, dairy, and also beverages. So um, that's pretty much what I do um, in terms of work. Um, is there anything else that I missed?
You can tell us a
Sorry.
little about you, the person, like where you're from, where you live, all that, if you
Oh,
want. Not like your house address and nothing of that, like that, but
no, okay. Yes. So I'm from New Jersey. I was born and raised in North New Jersey. Um, most people are familiar because if they ever come to New Jersey, a lot of people fly out of Newark Airport. So I'm from that location. I went to school for I majored in chemistry, and I've been in food science for the last 8 years. I have a daughter. Um, so I'm a single mother of one daughter. I have a very, very, very close family. I call it my village, who helps me with everything. Um, I am very involved in church activities. So I go to a Baptist church here in Newark um, that I've gone to all my life. And I also sing in the choir with them, which has been very interesting during COVID. But it's been very
right.
very fun. So that is me.
Awesome. And so, as I mentioned in the intro a bit, we met through our what I'd call like a Black employee network. Sort of did a program with these kind of weren't really mentoring sessions per se, but like connection meetings to get to know different
Yeah.
people. Recently become a much larger company, probably about doubled in size, and yay, more Black people and getting like, yay,
a
there's
little
more of us. Let's get to know each other.
a little more
Sort of thing.
sprinkles.
Yeah, I feel a little flecks of pepper in the milk bowl. Okay. So
Seriously.
yeah, so that is I think how we got to really connect, and we chatted for quite a bit, and Zaneta we just went and just talked. It wasn't some conversations, you meet people and it's like, how's it going? Great. So we just had a brief technical interruption when we were recording. So let's jump back into our podcast and pick up where we left off. Let's get back to where we were. So yeah, we know each other. We met through our Black employee network, trying to connecting colleagues together since we're now like doubled the size of our new company. And so, yay, more, as we were saying, more sprinkles
Sprinkles?
of pepper, little sprinkles of pepper in the milk, or flies in the milk.
Seriously.
Flies in the milk bowl has just such a negative connotation. So pepper into the cream sauce.
Oh, we'll put sprinkles
So.
on the ice cream.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you're making like, yeah, well, couple of sprinkles in there. So it was good to been connecting with different folks. And it's interesting, and I'm curious on if this was sort of been your experience with those connections. It's interesting that like even though like pretty much everyone I connected with worked in a different area of the business, whether it was like somebody from legal, somebody from a manufacturing site, somebody like yourself, sort of in the creative space. One of the not the flavors, what's the other one for the fragrance side?
Perfumist.
Yes, thank you. One's a perfumist. I was like, I can see it. Yeah, all these different like aspects that go into our organization, but we sort of still had the same or similar experiences with stuff.
Yeah, it's the common thread, which is crazy.
Yeah,
like I feel like people always like in my experience too, and I don't want to like I don't know if it's okay to go
no,
there.
go. This is
With
tangents. We just do this. It's an independent podcast. We do what we want when we want. So it's all good.
Okay, so we're good. Shackles
Yeah, we
off.
good. The shackles is off. That's why we say our company. We don't name the companies on this show. So with that, we stay employed in all
Yes.
the things.
Of course.
It's bad
But
or nothing, but
yeah, we won't get too bad. Like, we have a job. It feeds our family.
exactly.
I appreciate it. I'm grateful. No, but one of the things though, like it's a common thread and one of the like throughout my career, like working in corporate, like after graduating, and before I even started talking to people about stuff. Like at first you think that you're the only person going through it, but once I started being vocal about the experiences that I was having, it was like it was echoing everywhere. Like, oh, this happened to me. Oh, this has happened to me. And it's like not even in like in even the food business, like when you go to other businesses, it was people who were in insurance, it was people who was in um like every aspect of like in retail, in like anything that had to do that was connected in hospitality, anything connected to a corporation, they had similar issues or similar struggles or similar experiences, even if it wasn't issues like some people don't see it as issues, but they had similar experiences. And it's like you go and you talk to people and you're like, I can't believe how common this experience is. Like the Black experience is very common, in corporate at least.
Yeah. It definitely is. Before we get that, I'm gonna put a pin in that because I think we're gonna come back to that when we get into the later part. But so you talk about, being a food applications technician. I think, and I raised my hand on this, is that I never realized this is the same when I started even in my previous role where we did a lot with laundry addition enzymes. I never realized how much effort and science goes into a lot of the things we just either use or consume every day, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in the site that I was at, it's a research and development or R&D site developing enzymes that go into your laundry and dish detergent. It's the main products. They have other places that go into like milk products, dairy products to kind of change, help to improve the smoothness and all this kind of stuff. And
Yep.
then now with our new organization, it's the other side of some of the same coin of, okay, so you have the same food product. You might still be doing something with dairy products, but on y'all's side of like how the taste is of like the flavor they're looking for. If they're looking for like a jalapeno, cheddar cheese flavor, right? Like your favorite cookie, chip maker or something. It's like, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in your case, because you're dealing with sweet stuff, you're like, no idea that, the cookie that you enjoy is like, oh, this new salted caramel flavor that
Exactly.
it's not, it's like, oh, they do the caramel and the salt and bam, it's easy, right? It's just, some chef,
It's just
I
magic.
visualize some chef, it's just like, there it is, boom, done, right?
Yeah.
Easy peasy. But there's so much into it. So yeah, talk about how you got into the food science world.
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled upon it, and it's so crazy that it didn't connect. But this is where it's like I just say God just does things. Like it just kind of connected. So I went to school for chemistry. I always like science and math. Um, so in high school, um, I was really drawn to chemistry because it was like so many things that you can do um, with it. It was like, oh, I want to be a doctor, but if it doesn't work out, I can do all of these things. It's like a billion things you can do as a chemist. So I'm like, I need like 20 backup plans. That's just the way I am. And luckily I did. So I went to school, I majored in chemistry, and it was a long road within school and like a lot of stops and a lot of here, there, and everywhere. But eventually I finished. And when I finished school, it was not really a lot of employment opportunities. And it's funny because I said to myself, like, if I don't find a job, I'm going to culinary school. It's like, this is something I want to do. I was like, I just got this degree. It took me forever to get it. I'm stressed out, but you know what? If I don't find a job, I'm gonna do something that I like. And I remember going to, I went to interview at this temp agency, and I was talking to the lady, and she was like, after the interview, she was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, unfortunately, we don't have any chemist positions available. Um, she was like, but I want you to talk to my manager or whatever. So her manager comes in and he's talking to me and he's like, oh, well, like we having like a good back and forth dialogue. And then he said, oh, Zaneta, do you like to cook? And I was like, oh yeah, of course I like to cook. And he's like, oh, I like to bake. And he was asking me all these questions. And he was like, I feel like your personality would fit with the company I ended up interviewing for. And he was like, it's like a group of women and it's one guy. But I feel like you'll fit very well. It's a food company, a food ingredient company. And it's so would you mind going? He's like, it's out of your, it's not chemistry, but do you mind? Would you like to go on the interview? So I'm like, oh, of course I want to go on this interview because I'm like, if it's something dealing with food, I'm interested already. But
Right.
I also need a job. I have
I
a
need a
baby.
job. This is not like, would you like to go
Listen,
pick up poop? No, no, no. I mean, food. Okay. I like it. We eat
it's like,
it.
yeah, like if y'all
They
got,
gonna
if you
pay.
got
I
something,
mean, I'll try.
like I'm going on any interview, like whatever you say, I'm going. So I did go, and so I met with the lady, and I thought it was a really cool interview. And one of the things, one of the ladies who I'm very close with now, she actually, it was for her maternity leave, and she was going out on maternity. They needed someone to be a temp for like 3 months, and it was so I had the interview. And it felt real good. Like I felt really comfortable leaving the interview. And then I waited for it. And then eventually I did get the position. So I was like a technician. And it wasn't anything like it wasn't like this whole job that I thought was going to be like, oh, this is so great. Like I'm doing so much. Initially, I was just like filling cups, cutting cheese, like just doing a whole bunch of like stuff that you would do in like a food service. So I'm like, I was a waitress. I'm like, this is easy peasy. Um, I'm like, it feels like that, but I'll do it's less drama. So I ended up doing that, and because I had so much interest in like everything else, it would be like I'm just asking for more. Like, oh, I can do more than this. I don't have to just fill cups. Like, so I was in the sensory department. So I would ask them about what they were working on, and I would get insights about, how they were um, how they were testing like textures and how they looked at food differently. And then I would participate whenever they needed help with the studies, and then I would start writing stuff if they needed stuff. So in my time that I was there, I was really trying to maximize on my 10th experience, because I'm like, I wasn't getting a job. I don't have any experience. I'm like, I wasted my money on getting this degree. So it grew from there. And when my friend came back, well, she's my friend now, but eventually when she came back, when my position was supposed to be over, they extended me to try to see, like, and it was very generous because they tried to see if I can find a position. And the person who was my manager actually made an announcement, like, if you need anybody, like if you guys have any open positions and you need somebody, this is an excellent person to work with. And pretty much like the next day, HR was coming to me to speak to me like, oh, well, they have a position open in this technical service and blah, blah, blah. And it was another 10 position, but they were like, if you want to do it, we can interview or whatever. And I pretty much stopped one temp position on a Friday and started the other one on Monday. And then the rest was history, where I was working in a technical department of the company I formerly worked for.
No, that's really cool. It's funny how, like, sometimes you plan for certain things and you like kind of have a vision of what you'll do or what, okay, especially if you go to college or whatever, you're like, yeah, I'm just going to do X. And then you get out and you like end up not doing X. You end up doing something completely different. Like that was for me,
exactly.
like my undergrad experience was sort of the same. I went to school for biology, same idea. I wanted to go to medical school. And I got out of undergrad and I was like, the GPA ain't like med school ready.
So
like I don't even need to front. Like, let's not even pretend. Like, let's not waste
exactly
the application fee. Like the GPA ain't ready. So talking to other doctors, I was asking, what should I do? Because I know I need to get my GPA together before like applying to medical school. And they were like, you should go and get a master's in something. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, master's in biology. I was like, I don't really like the lab, like talking about it. Like I spent one summer, my mom was getting her PhD. And so I spent a summer in her lab doing like cleaning bottles and, prepping like media and, taking stuff out of the autoclave. And I was like, I do not want to be at a lab bench. It's just not for me. It's just not, it's not for me. It's not bad, I could do it if I needed to, but it's just the Lord said no. And I said, we agree.
It's like, as long as you answer to him, he knows more than you know.
He knows. So, I mean, I ended up tossing the idea of master biology. But I was like, well, what do I do with that? Even like if med school doesn't work out, what do you do with the master's in biology? I mean, I'm sure there are things you'd have to, in my mind, you'd have to probably get a PhD instead to really do something. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Especially because my mind is still like, I still want to go to medical school. So I'm like, I'm going to have, $100,000 worth of debt. I don't need like a PhD and then go get this other 100. I mean, people do it, do your path, do whatever. But I ended up down the path of public health because other people were talking about like, oh, an MPH, because then that's often a lot of people do MD, MPH as a program just in general. So I was like, okay, I'll go get the master's in public health and do that. And I went to LSU because I'm from Louisiana and in-state tuition was way cheaper. Like now there's two like schools of public health in that are in New Orleans, right? There's LSU has their school of public health and then Tulane has theirs. Tulane's was $30,000. And I said, no, for a 2-year degree. I'm like, no, $6,000 down the street. I was like, 6,000, we could do that. I could swing that. That's doable, much more doable. So, and then I got in there and I was, so they have like different concentrations. You can do straight epidemiology, you can do biostatistics, you can do health systems administration, or you can do environmental and occupational. And the environmental occupational stuff, because I'm always like you, science. I've always liked science, math, not so much, but science I really liked. And this was like even more science-y in the public health world. So it was like everyone got a basic epidemiology, so you totally understand those kind of things. And I suffered and made it through a biostatistics class by prayer and friends, and just not a math person. But yeah, the environmental and occupational stuff was really cool, and got into like in between my first and second year, I realized I didn't want to go to medical school anymore. I was like, I don't want to be in school for another 4 years and then another 4 or 5 years of residency and still not making, not that money is a driver, but at the same time, it's like, my brain was like, I don't want to be in school. I don't want to be in school anymore. And then I also was like, my whole point of wanting to go to medical school is to help people. And I'm like, I can help people doing public health stuff, doing, this. And I got even drawn to specifically like industrial hygiene or occupational hygiene side of stuff. So, I mean, and then that was all she wrote. So I finished grad school, did an internship, I had already graduated, but I got an internship with a big oil and gas company. And I was like, they're doing the final good internship, learned a lot, yada, doing final intern presentations. And I remember I stood in the middle of like this, like bigger, not auditorium, but like a bigger conference room where they had like kind of everybody, kind of the different team leads and a couple of others from our department. And I was like, I am looking for a job. I am done with school. I don't have a class to go back to, so please hire me.
I know
that. Like the end of my, I was just like, I'm gonna be 100 with it because want to have a job, don't want to be unemployed. So it worked out, and it was a great experience, and got into the world of health and safety and all this kind of stuff. So it's been a wild ride, but yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, it just happens. Sometimes you just kind of roll with what life gives you.
I don't know why I'm getting a weather alert. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just like, did I lose you? Oh no, I was like, I'm plugged in. I know my power is working
what
now.
What is going on? Yeah.
All
but
good.
Even just when you just said too, like it's so many times like where like most kids, and I think in the Black community, most kids, when you want to do something where you're helping others, you always have the desire to be a doctor. And like people don't realize how many, like it's so many, like we don't have, it's so much limited exposure that we don't realize that we can do more. And I think that was the thing too. I had that realization, like I want to help people, but I didn't see any other way to help anybody other than being a nurse or a doctor. So like, you see people who are sick and then you like, oh, I can do this and I can do that, but you don't realize in how many ways you can help people, like doing different things. And it's just like, you don't really have to just help sick people. You can help well people. You can help like you can make food. You can do this. You can do anything and still help people. And I think that's where we need to become, like we have to be more vocal about what we do so people can see, like you don't have to be selfish to want to do something different, but then you also you can be in pursuit of your own goals, but if you also want to help people too, there's plenty of things that you have to do other than being a preacher and a doctor. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I've tried to be starting doing a lot more, career counseling, career day stuff. Like I don't know the dates yet, but they're supposed to be doing a career day back at my high school. And I still don't know what I'm going to talk about exactly. Like, I don't know. I got into, it's just like science, math, like, don't be afraid to go into those. It's an all girls Catholic school that I went to for high school. So it's like, don't hesitate, like really focus in school, do your best. And that there's a whole wide breadth of different things that are out there that are still, if you like science, it's more than just at the lab bench. Not that there's anything wrong, but there's the lab bench that's out there. There's stuff like we do, food science, health, safety, all kinds of different things that you just don't even, that I didn't really know about. I don't know if it's a mixture of the Black community. And the other thing is that when you go to the store and buy ice cream, they don't say like, this is what it took to make it. These are all the science that goes into it. You just are like, I get it. and do whatever. And it's not like you want, there's not as vocal unless you're looking for that specific lane. Like you're looking into,
Yeah.
I want to learn about how food is made, then you might stumble across food science, or you kind of have to shift your focus. But I think with people like yourself and myself, like being out there in the communities, and even in situations where you're like at church and they got, younger kids, or they have like a, whether it's Black History Month or a career event or college event, it's like, hey, whatever school, not that you even have to go to college to do a lot of work. Like that's the other thing I'm also an advocate for. Even though I got 2 degrees and it's whatever, but trust and believe. Let me tell you what, if my children decide, I don't have no kids yet, let me tell you what, if you don't want to go to college, that's fine. But what you will do is go to trade school. Because let me tell you who will make bank. Bruh, let me tell you who will make bank, pandemic or otherwise. Electricians, plumbers, welders. I don't care what the whole world could blow down. That's not even better. We don't want, global pandemics or like the whole world falling. But imagine you have, construction industry.
Yep.
Stay booming. Because what happened? If they're not building new houses, people are like, oh, I'm going to renovate mine because the market's so crazy. Okay. Oh, no, I'm from New Orleans. A hurricane happened. Oh, no, now you need plumbing, electrician, roofing, whatever. It's not going to be like easy work in the physical sense, but your plumbing go out, who you calling?
It's so crazy because my friends, so like, everybody is at the age where like people have houses and stuff. I don't have one yet, but like,
we're going to believe God for that. We're just going to touch and agree that the house is coming.
But like everybody, when you look at it, like you can't call a peer to say like, oh, can you do X, Y, and Z? Like, can I hire you as my electrician? Can I hire you as my plumber? Can I hire you as my contractor? We don't have that. And it's like, it's so crazy because it was so glorified for people to get a certain type of education or to be able to go to college, that a lot of the trades went out the window. So you have a whole generation that don't know how to do anything. Like you can't lay any pipes. Like you can't do nothing. You can't put up no wall. Half the people can't paint. You can't put 2 wires together. And I'm like, it's so crazy, like within my generation, and like having a grandfather who was a contractor. And I'm like, he didn't have any formal education. Like he stopped going to school in 2nd grade because they had to work and stuff because they're from North Carolina. And like just understanding how like he was able to build himself up, and then he was like putting houses together and all this other stuff. But when he died, it's nobody after that. Like everybody got different jobs, and then everybody in pursuit of the American dream, you kind of threw the trades out, and you're like, oh, these are not glorified anymore. So now everybody is pushing in one direction, and they're like, oh, go to school. And then people don't even care that you're going to school for whatever type of degree if it has a job for you. So like you're going to school wasting all of this money, and then you get a job that probably has nothing to do with your degree because you can't find anything. And it's just like, for what? Like you could have did a trade, you had these skills that even if you don't use them, like if you don't get a job, you know how much money you save by doing your own plumbing.
Well, just even like you can just more easily, I think, and I think it's different strokes for different folks. I'm not knocking, we two folks who went to school and working in some field, whether it's exactly related to what we originally went to school for or whatever. But yeah, I think I'm 100, like if my parents actually never made it like you're going to college. They were more like, okay, whatever you want to do. First thing was whatever you want to do, you're going to be the best at it. Like you're just going to like, they were very driven. For me, it was an automatic in some ways because I'm blessed in that both of my parents went to school. My mom even went back, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that my mom went back to get her PhD when like I was in high school. And we actually, funnily enough, because I think she started my junior or senior year. I think it was my senior year. We finished at the same year I graduated from grad school. We graduated a day apart from each other.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, it was kind of crazy for real. But yeah, so education was very important in our family. But I think there's definitely so much in our generation. I think they're starting to see some more folks moving towards the trades in some communities,
Yeah.
which I think is everything. Because one of I think it's Christian's cousin is now either a full out electrician or like kind of studying and being a like apprentice in being an electrician. I'm like, see, but this is the way, because then you could easily translate that into your own business, right? Like I'm
Yes.
gonna, you get all the certifications and all the things you need to be like, I am a full out journeyman electrician, all this kind of stuff. You can do your own thing. You can just be
Exactly.
like, I'm an electrician, and then be like, oh, and then that's where the community, you mentioned your village raising your daughter, that village
Yeah.
mindset. That's how, like, with the house we're moving to back in New Orleans, it's like, oh, my dad's father-in-law, so it'd be like my step grandfather, he does construction stuff. So it's like, oh, I'm gonna reach out to that person because they're they're known for doing good work. Two, why not keep it in the same community and somebody who's
Yeah.
trusted and has some vested interest in what they're going to do, and they're going to put their name behind, and not just rando contractor number 237 who's just like, man, whether they're good, you don't know until it's too late that
Exactly.
they're a crappy
They're,
contractor or something. So
and I think that that's what makes, like, I think that's the piece that's missing. So like with all of this culture growing where you want to support Black business, you also have to see, like, it's certain things like are you meeting the need? And what, like, if I decided to only purchase or only function within my community, there are so many gaps now because people have funneled in only specific areas. Like, so if I don't need certain goods to purchase, then, like, where are the electricians, where are the plumbers, where are the people who are, raw ingredients and doing X, Y, and Z, who are welding, who are like like who's making furniture, who has the connections if I wanted to start a business, who's banking, who's, like, it's all of these pieces that I think that has to it has to come together, because without it all, like, it really can't, like, you really don't ever become a full functioning community again, because we're not able to, like, we're pretty much handicapped. And I feel like we're more reliant on others because there's like so many pockets and gaps in our communities nowadays. Like even if we were going back to like the food, like in food science, one of the big things that I noticed when I was working, so we would visit customers and I would go to these customer visits, and like you're visiting all of these major food companies, like you're like, oh, this is stuff I buy out of the grocery store. I get, this is my ice cream, this is my yogurt, this is my, my potato chips, this is this, that, and the other. And I go into these places and no one in there is Black. And you can go in your community and you see this stuff all the time. You have the biggest advocates for them. And it's not one person working on the project. It's not one person who's doing flavor. It's not one person who's doing the texture. It's not one person who's supplying the ingredients. It's not one person. Like, so you're like, it's a huge, huge problem because, like, we're really not supplying anything. And it's just like, what happened? It's like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
It's like so
This is
crazy when you start to look at it. It's like, I just kind of, it's like, I feel like if somebody decided to shut off everything, I don't know. Like, this pandemic had me a little anxious. I'm like, ooh, what can my people do that's close to me?
and that's the thing too, is it's so, especially the US. I don't, I've only lived in one other country, and that was Canada. And the part of Canada I lived in was very few Black people there too. But it's so regionalized as far as how that community is formed or is not, right? So like in New Orleans, which is or like in some cities that are predominantly Black, where you have like New Orleans, you have Atlanta, you have places like that, then you do see a lot more of those,
Mm-hmm.
the different veins of society, whether it be electricians or plumbers or furniture makers or, musicians or teachers or this and that, you see a lot more of that. Banking, like there's a Black bank, Liberty Bank. I think they have I don't know where they're located. I know they're definitely in New Orleans in the South, but I don't know if they're like all over the place, right? So then if you live in a region where that's it, then so maybe you can kind of further feed that community. But but if you don't, like in the Northeast, I don't know of
You know,
anything
you
that
don't see it.
way. Yeah.
And it's just like, it's one of those things. Like, and I think that's why people are also moving. Like, besides the fact that the cost of living is going crazy, but I think a lot of people are moving back south because you're losing those connections. And then you don't like. I think people are starting to feel very detached. Even with the wave of everything being like, it's like popular now. And you went through a few waves in history where it's like, oh, being Black is elevated, and like with all of that rising to the surface, like a lot of people are still like in a state of discomfort. And like I feel like that's why people are migrating back to the South, whereas before it was like everybody was coming north. And I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, the dynamics of the pandemic and the moving, because I think there's pluses and minuses. There's sort of silver linings that have existed because of in this post-pandemic sort of world that we're in, moving to a more endemic phase. But this idea, like we were talking earlier before we started recording, that like the ability to do things, though we've had these tools for a period of time of doing things virtually through Zoom, Teams, insert video conferencing tool, Google Meet, FaceTime, all this kind of stuff. The ability to do that in a way that is more, you're still proven to be just as effective and can have that flexibility now, allows people to step back and say, especially if you live in high cost regions like the Northeast or Bay Area, and you're like, so not everybody's job, but some roles. So you do have that's the one flip side of the non-trade stuff where like, I can do some of what I do somewhere else, right? Like at a certain level and a certain type and vein. You're like, why? I do not want to live where it is this expensive. And especially not being from there. Now for you, like you're from there, you have this large community there. I get why, like, I think I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, it would be a heavy push to move you out of like the New Jersey region.
Yes.
It would be like big dollars.
Like everybody would have to go with me too. Like,
yeah. And
oh.
Yeah, you'd be like, moms, I can take care of you. Like you can move in, we'll put you in the guest house. Like we're going to Oprah it up. Like the community is coming. Y'all gonna be on the team, then that would be it. And then at that point, then I'm coming to work for you.
Exactly.
Because I feel like you need a health and safety person to manage the team so we make sure nobody get hurt. So, but yeah, so yeah.
Yeah,
I think
like
we're getting some of the reverse Great Migration going on for Black folks. And we're just tired. And I think people are getting burnt out as Black people in some parts of the country, especially if you're not from there. You're like, okay, I'm not from here. All my family's somewhere else. There aren't many Black people around here, especially in certain circles that you're going to go around. Like, yeah, maybe in the service industry, maybe no dig on the service industry, but it's like, it's different being in these rooms, and it gets to be onerous sometimes. And it's this balance of it's onerous of being the only person in the room, but at the same time, at least I'm in the room and can bring somebody else in the room. So it's like that balance. But yeah, just like for regions that are, especially for us, cost of living and family are the main like two. Get out now. Get out. I'm remote. Done. As soon, like before I even took this role, I talked with my manager and I was like, so we're talking about kind of what is this thing? We're looking at adding this role to the new organization, woo to woo to woo. And I'm listening, my mind is like, And so I legit, before I even officially was in this role and just learning about it, was like, this sounds like a remote position. Are you supportive of that? And he was like, yes. I said, Done. Plan activated. Like, let's go. Again, so it's a whole thing.
I think that's the whole thing, like burning out. One of the things I feel like, and it's so crazy that it's happening now, but I feel like I've been on this journey for like the last like 5 years where I was burning out. And I think one of the things was like you have this idea that things have changed and you see how much they have not changed. And I think it creates this like it creates like I can't even explain it. It's like so much confusion in your mind. Like I was not expecting to fight some of the battles that I was fighting in the 2014, 15, 16, 17. Like I didn't expect this stuff to be happening just because, you see things changing and you see how the image changed. You think about how things changed throughout the 90s and where it was like a big boost in entertainment where you were seeing black faces and then like, you had this whole idea like, oh, I can do anything. Like everything can happen. And, you just thought doors were open. Once doors are open, you just gonna bust them down. Like it was just, and then you walk in and you get to these spaces and you're like, hold up, something is not right. This is not what they told me. This is not what I thought it was gonna be. How come I'm the only one? And it hasn't been one before me since how long? And then, why did this person leave? And like, why can't anybody stay? And it's just like you start to dig and you start to see stuff. And when you start to, and then like everybody's story is different. But I feel like you start to see stuff and it's just like you don't really, it's really hard to like understand how you respond to things sometimes because it's like, okay, we're not in this era, but how do I respond to it today? Because it's not outright, like it's not like you're just a bigot and I can respond however I want to, but it's just like you start to see like all of these systems in place that are still barriers that are there. And they're hidden barriers. Like they're like, oh well, you think that you can do this and you think you can do that, and then all of a sudden you're like hitting all of these invisible barriers that you thought should have been gone, and you see how the scales are unbalanced, and it's just like I can't, like I don't even know how to navigate this space, and like nobody is talking about it, like, and I'm like thankful for this moment that people are now becoming more vocal about things, but it's just like this is very new, like the last 3 years, 2 years really, like where it has become more heightened again. But I'm like, nobody was talking about it, like what was going on in corporate. Nobody, people were just leaving. You just had people who were just walking out. And it's just like, so now when you're in these spaces, it's like, I don't know what to do, but I also don't know what to say to anybody because then I feel like I'm weak because I can't handle these things. So do I just walk away too? And it's just like, now, like, what do you do? Like, and I think it's really causing a lot of anxiety and depression in people because it's just like I should be able to say that I'm okay, but I'm not.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing to be it takes a lot of strength to say that you're not okay and to really raise the flag on stuff. And I remember one thing, and it wasn't, I think it was less a black white thing. It was more they grew up with this, like, came up through the old organization, this kind of old thing, and being a woman themselves. This was another woman. But I think because they had to go through a bunch of shit, they felt the need to then give other women a bunch of shit. I think I think in their mind, and there was an episode that I had with this person. I think in their mind, they thought they were like mentoring and like, you got to go through like as if I've never pledged an organization, but as if I'm pledging, exactly. Right? Like I had to go through this, so you too should go. Like, I just don't do well. I remember it specifically, and they're no longer, before we even merged as part of, our larger company, they were already gone, retired. Not for me, my specific incidents, they ran into their own HR incidents with some other employees. So if you got other issues, anyway, it was a situation where we were managing an incident. We hadn't quite, for our site, we had a few incidents of people reporting issues late, as far as like discomfort, late, got to the point of requiring medical treatment, kind of ergonomic stuff. And we probably could have done a better job of case management for this specific instance. And I knew we had missed the mark, and me and my specialist knew we had missed the mark. So it was like, we could have done a little bit better, but let's go ahead and get this conference call real quick with this lady and this other lady who, backstory unbeknownst to me, but you could tell during the call, they had chatted about stuff. So they sort of came in there coming in hot and kind of tag teaming us. And it was just very aggressive to be like, we're on a work call. And it just was like, I don't understand why you haven't done and just reading the riot act. And I'm on speakerphone in my office with my direct report and just getting lit in. And both of them was like, oh yeah, because so-and-so and I talked about that. These other two that are on the call. I was like, oh, so we're just tag teaming today? And it was just a lot. And it was already like, I was tired. I was already new, like, and I'm a perfectionist, like to the 10,000th degree. I'm like super micro organized, like I mentioned about my dad saying, like, you're going to be the best. I'm just always wired to do exceptionally well. So like when I don't miss the mark, I'm my worst critic. So we're already there.
Mm-hmm.
Your goal is, and it's not even like my supervisor. This is someone who's sort of dotted line functional. Your goal should be to support sites and help them when they're struggling with something, not beat them down. I just remember I got off that call and I just was like, started to try and go do the rest of my job and walked back into my office and was just like, because and it was just a tone and it was just so unnecessarily aggressive and rude for what we're talking about and where we are at the workplace. And at first, my first mind, and this is where you're Black, you're like, I'm gonna walk off this job, be like, what these bills though? Like, I'm gonna leave today.
Like, I do not need this.
I don't need this. Yes, you do.
You don't need those people jobs.
Like, I don't need these people. Yeah, the bills though, but the rent though.
Oh,
it's like, okay. It's like, oh, wait. It's like, okay, don't do that. Can't do that. Okay,
like,
okay,
you're not
okay.
about to keep on.
No, but what happened is after I had my little moment in my office, I went up and talked, because I talk with HR all the time, because it's health and safety and HR, there's situations where they overlap if somebody's coming off a leave or something like that, and what can they do, and reasonable accommodations or whatever. So I really knew our HR person very well. And I was like, I got to tell you, it's like, can we have a conversation? And I said, so this just happened, and gave her the rundown. And I said, I just want to let you know that that's not okay behavior. And I just want to, I didn't do like a formal, like big, like, look, I don't need it to be a big thing, but I'm going to tell you now that's not okay. And so whatever needs to happen for her to know that, and so she was like, and this was not a one-off behavior. Like, it wasn't like, well, clearly she had a bad day. She's never like, this is so outside of her character. No. She's that way. She's one of those people. She was one of those people that was big, bad, and bold on emails and conference calls. But then you get him, and she's like, oh, I'm just trying to help. And this old pussycat stuff. And you're like, I just was like, and it's not okay.
Stand it. Yeah.
Those are the worst. So it ended up getting to her supervisor. She ended up trying to call me. I was like, I'm not going to talk to her. I'm not doing it. And so she ended up, I don't know if that was the only reason she was coming out here, but she had to fly cross country, and she came and apologized to me. And I was like, we had a conversation. I was like, I'm going to tell you that form of communication doesn't work for me. And I don't give me the opportunity to make a correction before you just light into somebody. So we got to a level set understanding. But like I said, she ended up having another official HR case with somebody else. And I was like, my supervisor was like, I'm not supposed to ask, was that you? But was that you? I was like, not me. My thing was done. I got my apology. She ain't jump quick. I think she probably, you can pull that stuff, but this is where the Blackness comes in. It's like, you can pull that with some folks.
But no,
you're not gonna jump bad on me.
It's so funny.
It's one of those, I didn't cuss you out. I didn't lose my cool. I was just like, I'm gonna tell you, that's not okay. So,
and that's what I think that's one of the things, like, respect goes a long way. Like, and I feel like people, and we're in a workplace, we're all working adults. I don't care what level you are, but you have to respect me. And I'm like, that's one thing that I just like, I can't tolerate it. And I'm like, you're not going to keep on disrespecting me. You're not going to keep on coming, like even saying stuff in my presence that I don't approve of, like is disrespecting me. So you're gonna have to nip that in the butt. And like, and I at first I was like, because I'm, and I think I have definitely grown in that space. And I'm like, I have to really give honor to God for it because I've been put in some uncomfortable situations, and me being timid and of being like afraid of everything or afraid of confrontation and just running away from stuff wasn't helping me. So like being in settings where like I remember when I first started, like I will start. They told me that I used to have to go out. You used to have to go out to like these dinners, and it's like, oh, if you don't go out to the happy hours, then people don't know you, and then that's how it gets in the way of your promotion. Forget the fact that I'm like working like 20 times as hard as everybody else, and I'm helping everybody on their projects, this, that, and other, and like like the money that's coming in, like forget all of that. It's like, oh, this is the advice I'm getting. You go to happy hour. That's how you how you get on the good side. And like one of the happy hours, it was a comment about Newark, and it was like pretty much somebody was moving like it. I remember it being something, I can't remember exactly what it was the first time, but it rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm like, well, people know where I'm from. Like if you're in management, you kind of know, like you talked about it. Like I like people know where I'm from. And like even if we were having conversations about my commute, like people knew. And it came up one time, and the second time it came up, and like it was about someone who was moving to the area. And I was saying, like, we were talking about property taxes, and like New Jersey taxes are like ridiculous, like like if you're coming from Arizona, it's not the same. And the guy said, he's like, oh, you're listening. It was me and another girl who was talking, and he's like, oh, you're listening to something. It's like he's from Newark or something. Like pretty much completely, like pretty much you don't have to listen to her because she's from Newark. Like they don't know. It's like, okay. So it was just like at that moment, and I felt so crazy because it was like a blow. And instead of me like taking it like, oh, well, forget him or whatever, it was just like I took it as a super insult. Like, I'm not supposed to be here. Like, people are like, if somebody's coming, like, I'm ashamed of where I'm from. And instead of me being like, that was disrespectful. Like, I was just so embarrassed and I didn't defend myself. And as I grew, like, and I was like, oh, I don't really have to go to happy hours. So I would stop going to happy hours because then I felt insulted. And it's just like little stuff would happen where he would talk about women, and like, it wasn't comfortable for me to just be around it and like laugh for me to get wherever. Um, but it was just like at some point it was just like they started to see, because I was like, I can't take this anymore, like in my mind, because I was just getting so stressed out. And I'm like, I shouldn't feel uncomfortable about where I'm from. I shouldn't feel uncomfortable about who I am. And then like even in the height of things with Black Lives Matter, like I had to start like checking people, like, and it's just like and everybody was like so shocked, like when it was, because I was really just like this happy Black girl doing whatever I do. I work with everybody. Nobody's used to me saying no. Nobody's used to me saying anything. But I was like, I can't be in this space where I'm walked over. Like one of the things, like you can't, like, I don't care how low I am. I don't care my position. You're not going to keep on, like, you're not going to feel comfortable disrespecting me. And it was just like one thing after the next. I remember them saying something about, because I stopped doing extra work, because when it came time for me to get a promotion, it was really like a lot of pushback. And I'm like, every year I was outperforming, and I would have to write an additional write up to say what I did extra, find out nobody else is doing that. And I was just like, okay. So I'm like, and then when everybody on my team got promoted and then I didn't get promoted and I felt like they were playing a game with me, I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything more than what I'm supposed to do. Like, I'm giving too much away for free. And I remember my manager, well, she was my former manager at the time. She was like, oh, I feel like she was like, oh, you're not motivated anymore. And at that moment, I like checked her, like it just came out. It was like, first of all, um, I'm not demotivated. Like I'm not like I'm still motivated, but I'm only motivated to do my job and nothing more. Like at this point, like you're getting off. Like, how do you feel like comfortable coming to me and saying like you're not motivated? And then it was like something where I had to check someone else when it was like two of my peers they were talking about. Like the girl comes in, she's like, "Oh, I'm so sick of this Black Lives Matter stuff," and I'm like, "What?" Like, and like the way I turned my seat around, like, "Whoa, hey, saying like," and I'm like, we had a really good relationship, but it's just like you feel comfortable. You walked in here and you thought that it was okay to say something in my presence as if it didn't affect me. You thought that I wasn't going to check you. And then it just kept on being like all of these situations where I had to like stand up for myself because I felt like I was going to get buried if I allowed people to disrespect me. And then things just started to open up. Like even with me going to talk to the director, because it was just like so many barriers in the way, and he would keep on doing stuff. That's the one who made the comment about Newark. And I'm like, he would do a lot of little things that would try to get under my skin. And I remember before I left and I had a conversation with him and he was like, "Well, is it anybody you have a problem with? Is it the reason why you're leaving?" I was like, "Well, I don't have any problem with anybody, but you." Like,
He wasn't ready for
and
that.
I and I'm saying it like this is how I talk. Like I'm talking with a smile, so it throws people off a little bit. Like I don't have a problem with anybody but you, but because this is what you said, and I've been keeping track of what you said to me. Like you said that I wasn't good enough because of X, Y, and Z. Now you're coming to me to ask me why I'm leaving the company, and like as if you don't know. And I'm like, it's been so many times where you just if you don't speak up for yourself, like you begin to lose value. And that's where I felt like I was like getting to the point where people felt like they could come and be disrespectful in front of me, or you can say whatever you wanted to say in front of me, or you feel like you can give me whatever you want to give me. And I'm like, no, like I'm sorry. Like I don't know where my kindness got confused with like being a doormat, but you're not going to disrespect me. And I think that changed the whole aura and like the whole trajectory of my career, because I'm like, I just can't. Like I'm not going to compromise on how I am to, make you feel comfortable doing whatever you're doing to me. And I'm like, I don't think people understand how valuable respect is. Like you can do a good job and you can also be authoritative without disrespecting people. You can encourage people to do a better job. You can also tell people they didn't do a good job, and hold people accountable, being respectful at the same time. But you're not going to come in here and talk to me any kind of way. You're not going to like do whatever you want to do. Like, no.
No, absolutely. For sure. Unfortunately, I totally understand. Who was I
Like,
talking
woo.
with? Oh, I think I was talking with somebody last night at dinner, this couple that we went out, and that same sort of idea of, especially when there are more than one of us, it's like you don't know this, but we do talk. We do, like, and not in a like catty way, they talk to me about this. Did they come to you for this? Because like
Mm-hmm.
I ran into this situation of there's probably like, on the site when I was working there, it was like, we had 200 people. There's only like 5 to 7 people that really work my life. Everyone else, cool, copacetic, love what you do, whoop de whoop de woo, all good. They have their little whatever's things that come up, but overall, not an issue. But there's a handful of folks that they like don't get the answer they want, so they'll try and go to somebody else and ask the same sort of
Mm-hmm.
question in a different way with it. And I was just like, I remember it was some project team wanting to do X, and I was like, we can't do this because of this, this, and this. And then they came, and this person working in the regulatory group wanted to came to the operations person sort of in the same, who used to do the food grade stuff, and was like, came at it from the same, trying to get to the same answer. And then me and the ops manager, who was a Black woman, we would have these like walking meetings and stuff. He's like, did so-and-so come to you with this? I said, yes. I told her, she's like, so-and-so just came to me talking about X, Y, and Z. And I said, but I told her we can't, we're not set up for that for our site. Like
That's
we're in
why
our,
they don't like y'all talking to each other. Nope.
like, I was like, No, I thought I'm pretty sure I explained that. I was like, I feel like I even pulled out my phone and was like, let me check my email. It's I said, no, we're not, we can't do that. It's like, bro, why are you looking for a different answer? I told you the answer. You don't have to like it.
That's
And
why
it's
they don't want you to
always,
talk to each other. It's like, don't talk
I
to
know.
somebody.
We can't be aggregating too much. Should be throwing them off. But
Y'all
it's
can't
just
be
like,
friends.
that's the thing. It's just like, bro, don't ask for like, and my whole thing is you work in that group in regulatory. You know, you should know this, one. So I'm doing your job for you. Two, be big, bad, and bold enough to go back to the project team and say, we can't do it this way. We're gonna have to find another way. It's just not going, we just can't do it. It's just the way this is. And I don't come up in the world of health and safety. This isn't just the whims of Monique. This isn't just, I feel like I'm the kingmaker and I make decisions and bequeath it so. And that's, I just want to tell you, no, these are based on, these are the rules. This is what, and I'm a rule follower. Like the permit says we can do X, or the permits that we have in place, we can only do those because of the fact that we're not production. So we just can't. And the city and the zoning. And it's just like, do you want to hear the minutia of it? Or do you want to just listen to me when I tell you, no, we cannot? Because just follow the directions. And I told you no.
And they'll throw you under the bus if you
I thought that, when
like,
really?
Nope. That's why I tell you no.
Like, oh no.
Like, look, I'm not being a liability for you to do whatever you feel like doing. It's like, I'm not the scapegoat.
Oh no, because a lot of things, that's the thing with the world of health and safety. A lot of times, at least for our site, a lot of times my name is on these permits. I'm not getting in trouble. What's not gonna happen? I done signed my name to something that said I will do under penalty of law and all this. They're not suing me. They're not throwing me under nobody's bus, and I'm not going to jail. So that's a no. And I'll write it to there's then documentation. I'll tell you no. And if I need to, I'll email you. Be like, as per our discussion. No. And this is why. So then if they come with it, like the documentation.
Sorry for you. But, And it's so
I'm not sorry for you. I'm just telling you, this is what they hired me for. If you want to do and read permits and read through regulations and read through zoning things and to find out that you can't do something, that's fine. You can do that. Or you can take my word for it.
And I'm like, I wonder, like, I don't know if it was a time before, of course, but like, it's so many people who want to just take shortcuts and like not do stuff right. And like, what is going on here? Like, in the world of STEM too, it's just like, I don't know how much I can trust y'all anymore, because y'all like to take these shortcuts that I'm not ready for.
It's craziness.
Yeah,
but it's an adventure. It's an adventure being a Black woman in America, a Black person anywhere in the world, but a Black woman in America.
Yes, it is very interesting. It's definitely, like, I don't know. I feel like I see something happening in the future. I'm very optimistic about the future. Although, like, I do sometimes get a little nervous about what I see.
Right.
It's just like, it can be very, very challenging. And then in each space, like, sometimes I think what helps too, like, I like that, we were able to, through this business resource group, connect, and you're able to connect with a lot of different people. It's just like, you stop being the person who feel like you're battling things alone. And I think that sometimes, like, I don't know, this whole quota thing, because of the Black and then the minority, double minority thing, how they get numbers with the women, having the Black woman get a 2-for-1. And like, you end up being in a space that's so isolating, and you feel like you're just doing stuff all by yourself. And it's just like, I'm not connecting with anybody. So I'm like, I'm so happy that, like, we're able to engage with one another and, like, and be able to break out of those, like, this is just happening to me situations.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still a lot of work to do. Like, so I'm celebrating this moment where we are able to connect, but I'm also very, very like, I feel like something else has to be done. Like it can't keep on being these like is one black woman in this department and one black person in that department and one black
Mm-hmm.
person over here and one black person consulting speaking for all the black people. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's like
I think I think what is encouraging, I can speak for our company, without naming them, but I think because they're starting to tie it to like CEO level like money. If you're tying it to
yeah,
people's money, then you'll actually see some progress. We just have these pie in the, I think for a lot of companies for so long, it's been these pie in the sky. Yes, it's
yep,
important, flowery good time, and you really just spent maybe get to knowledge awareness level of information and maybe networking and connecting. But really, because if you make these large objections like they are side not objections but objectives rather of you're going to have 50% 40% people of color in leadership positions,
mm-hmm.
that means now they have to put some money and effort behind developing people to be ready for those positions if they're not, right? So that's part of like
Yeah,
the whole thing in the last few years. You could say, okay, you're building new organizations, you build them out. It's like, I get it's it's not cool, but like you get and you look at these organizations and it's like, oh man, they had this opportunity to add more visible diversity in those things. But the problem is that, you know, they haven't done sufficient. There's a couple little fronts of I think any organization. So if you're listening to this and you're leading a company or you're part of an HR group, get your pen and paper out because Monique's going to give her
seriously.
her her thoughts. First off, it's not on us black people to solve your problem, but I will help you in this instance. Um, but I think the keys are flooding the pipeline, which is making sure you are reaching out to these diverse organizations like the NSBs, and there's a Black microbiologist group, all of HBCUs, communities of color that exist throughout the U.S. and the world, reaching out and really becoming part of and partnering with those communities so that you're flooding the pipeline. Because most big companies, the way you get a job there is one of two ways. It's you start there as an intern,
Mm-hmm.
um, or somebody who knows somebody, which the know somebody to know somebody only people you only know so many people, so that
Mm-hmm.
becomes a thing. And to me, the key on the intern piece that I think for companies need to do is not only to reach out in communities where there are visibly diverse, culturally diverse places, is to also then set them up for success so that regardless whether it's people from a certain socioeconomic level, and even if they're white, black, purple, whatever, providing the opportunity for them to do an internship, and especially in places where you operate where maybe it's a very expensive cost of living, and if they're going somewhere that's different than where they are, to cover a certain stipend for housing.
Exactly.
Because that was the big thing, for our site that we run into with interns. You end up getting the same kind of pocket of people who are from here, whether they they may go to school at MIT or Notre Dame, but they're from the Bay Area because they can live at home or with an auntie or uncle or cousin or whatever. Or people who can somehow afford to partner with somebody from Stanford or whatever. Because most people, I remember one of the times I was going to have an intern, it was when they went to an HBCU, they accepted, but then they had to go back because they looked at cost of living was too high. So I think having a stipend or working out a partnership with like those hotel-y, but they're kind of like
Mm-hmm.
apartments type of things, so that you say, okay, we're going to have these number of rooms for this period of time. Let's get work out a rate, corporate discounty situation. So then people have that option. They could choose to stay somewhere else, but at least you could say, all right,
Mm-hmm.
they'll have a safe space that's, you can probably in most areas find someone that's reasonably close and whatever. So I think that's the key to not only recruiting at certain places, but at more places, diverse locations, HBCUs, and all that stuff all over the U.S. And then, yeah, making that evening that playing field of having a stipend for housing. So
Yeah.
then people don't have to think about that aspect. It's one thing to like help to flood the pipeline.
And like when you say that too, because like it's been so many like situations where I saw like things like even with like if you were talking about housing, like there has been companies um who have offered like a lot of incentives to their interns. And at the same time, they just haven't recruited any Black interns. Like you have an amazing incentive program, but you recruited your intern because one employee knew when the position was opening, they had a friend whose kid was in school, and this like, and I'm like, in the industry that we work in, it's so small. Like the way people are like, it's really like this person knows this person, or it's really like they model it after like you are the me, like oh, if I'm managing, I'm gonna pick from this university and this person did these activities. That sounds like somebody who um like they really, even with the incentives in place, like they still recruit from where they know. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to all of this DE and I, like the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff, I think that they really have to change the framework because I think they're trying to really just put a band-aid on a problem. So pretty much after like people are becoming upset about all like and data is coming out too, like data that we didn't have before. And it's revealing a lot of statistics that are embarrassing to say the least. Like it is so embarrassing that your company has existed over 100 years, and your numbers pretty much look the same from the 60s to now. And
Mm-hmm.
like, like, like it's like it's no way that you didn't recruit, like you couldn't maintain like a pool of individuals to make it into this market. And then I think that a lot of times the conversation is like we just didn't know. And I think that they're able to rely on that ignorance too often, and they don't try to resolve the issue. So when you know, like within America, we're funding those for schools, you know how universities rate people. And then like even just in terms of like when you think about like I always go back to this. Like I went to a school in Newark. Like my school was underfunded in underfunded area. And then I went to a predominantly white university my freshman year in college, a school that I couldn't afford. But I went anyway because it was a small classroom environment. So it was majority white individuals. And my GPA wasn't like the greatest, right? So I had a 2.9 something GPA. I think it was like a 2.99. Like I was right under 3.0. And like you had to have like a 3 point, like I think you had to have at least like a 3.25 or something to get into school. So I'm like, thank God, like, you just get put in places. With all of the combination of things I was able to get in, it probably whatever. But long story short, like understanding like my roommates GPAs were like super high. Like they had above like 4.0s, like between a 3.9 and a 4 point whatever from taking AP classes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into a space where you're like, okay, well, you had to take like the curriculum, like how your parents force you to take certain classes. And then, the dynamics within the school are different because it's like, well, they don't want you to fail. And like it's a push from their parents to make their kids go to certain schools. And then when you're in these same classrooms, when you're all learning the same material, not that they know more, like it's so confusing that like you have this 4 point whatever,
I
and
mean,
I'm
they're
helping
smarter.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm helping you. So now I'm thinking that like, oh, I'm I'm thinking that I'm inadequate. I'm thinking that I'm gonna come here and learn something from you because you're telling me your GPA, and I'm like, I don't even tell y'all what my GPA is. But now I'm helping y'all in calculus. I'm helping you in biology. I'm helping you in chemistry, and y'all got 4.2s or whatever. And I'm like, the way you're recruiting people, it has to change because now you're looking at numbers that pretty much don't mean anything. You're not
Right.
looking at people's abilities. You're not looking at how people are able to navigate in different environments. You're not looking at people, like what people are bringing to the table. And I think that you have to really get a holistic view of what somebody's going to bring, because the recruitment strategies are really outdated. And I went to
Mhm.
this like this DNI like it was like some workshop. It was some virtual thing. I don't even know how I got on it, but I like joined, and it was like they were saying how they have to change within the company how they recruit, their recruitment practices. So like even if you like it can't be just you have an interview, because people have biases that they're going to bring to the table. Like you can't, like they're not going to just go away. So it was just like they had something where they were saying how people was, it was pretty much like on the job interviewing. Like you
Yep.
were pretty much performing to see how you function on the job. And that's how they were actually like hiring somebody. Like that's an idea. Like let me see how you perform in this setting. Not let me not just look at what you have on paper. And I'm like, I was so for it, because I'm like, so many times, like throughout my experience in college and through my career, it was like I didn't look good on paper always. But it's just like if somebody worked with me, it was a very different um, experience than if you just saw what I had on paper. And it's like, how many opportunities have I been denied? And it's just like, even with resume writing, if you're somebody who's like, I had nobody in the science field before me, like nobody in my family is in science. Like, I don't have anybody, like, nobody likes math or that, like, nothing. Nobody likes math. Nobody's into science. The stuff I was looking for, the certain things that you have to have on your resume, like nobody knew what I was going into, right? So even with putting certain things on my resume that I didn't know that I would have needed, like I just don't know. Like it's stuff that I've done that I didn't know that go on my resume. But until I get into an environment where I can talk to people who are actually in the field, that's where I was able to, add stuff in or do the right thing. But I'm like, what happens to those people who have the skills, but they're overlooked because you don't come from an environment that the person who's hiring is comfortable with, or the person who's hiring is used to? They automatically assume that you don't have the skills fit for the job. So I'm like,
Right.
I think that when we start to get into all these diversity and inclusion programs, I think that you have to really take what you have and like pretty much throw it in the garbage, because you're not going to get
Yep.
you're even if you put a metric. So if you say I want to hire 40, I want to hire the whole company Black, like, are you, or I want to have a whole quota, like I want, like, you have these quotas, but it's just like, what are you doing differently? Like, okay, so you're just gonna now all of a sudden find Black or find diverse talent out of the blue, and you're gonna just pick people from at random, and you're gonna, like, you're not, and then that's also devaluing the person who, like, you're not even looking for people, like you're gonna start creating positions because you have to meet the quota. You're not looking in the pool that of people who are qualified for certain positions. You're not looking for the best talent. You're looking for the person who meets the metrics. So it's just like, it's so many pieces that are involved in it that I don't think that they
Mhm.
realize, but they wanna appease everybody and make everybody feel comfortable and say this is what we're gonna do. But it's just like you're really just putting a band-aid on it. You don't really want to resolve the problem. You just don't want to be accountable for the stuff that you've done, or like, the fact that you still haven't fixed something where you could have fixed it.
Mhm. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with over the next bit of time. I think it's I can speak at least to the DEI office. I think has a lot of passion around it. I think HR has a lot of passion around it. I
Yeah.
think they're slowly starting to figure out that they do need to do something different. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's coming together, and it'll be just interesting in the next, 3, 4, 5 years to see how it progresses, right? Year to year, right? Are
Yeah.
we going to see some progress? We're going to see, as because got a mixture of like older, there's kind of the two waves of people, right? There's the people that are about to retire. There's this whole slew of folks in that kind of arena that in the next, 5 years will retire, and see where are we seeing
Mm-hmm.
some growth and development, so that you'll see people elevating within diverse people with that are already in the company elevating in those spaces. And then as we see more waves of the new kids on the block coming in, and seeing what that kind of pool and pipeline looks like. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
see.
And that's what I hope. I hope so. Like I'm very hopeful, but it's just like, at the same time you have to look back at what happened with affirmative action. And it's just like we put in quotas and if the mindset, the culture and all that stuff doesn't change around it, you just gonna end up mistreating the people that you end up getting and they're gonna leave and then
Yeah.
and then we'll be back at square one. So I'm I keep my hand in it just to see how it's going.
Yeah.
So I can help wherever I can. And,
Yep. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I think we got through most of the topics roundabout ways and stuff, which is I love just letting it organically. I sent out outline, but you just got to let the conversation go where it may.
just drawing tangents everywhere.
No, it's all. I mean, that's podcasting. I listen to a fair amount of podcasts, and I listen to some of the stuff that my husband listens to for podcasts. They have like 3-hour episodes and just be like tangent, come back, tangent, and then coming back. It just makes it part of, like a real conversation. So that's what I think
Yeah.
podcasting is, that mixture of, it's like a, informative, but it's also like how conversations are, right? We're at the
Yeah.
virtual kitchen table or whatever. So
Virtual friends, like you feel like you're at a friend.
yeah,
A
you're just
friend's house.
hanging, you're like, a couple glasses of wine or whatever, just chatting it up like we do.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. This was
cool.
fun though. It's my
This
first
was
podcast.
There you go. There you go. It'll be all good.
Yes,
But
thank
yeah,
you for the
thanks.
invitation.
Absolutely. And thanks for accepting and not being like, oh no, I just, I don't want to come. No, thank you. Bye. So really appreciate having you on. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Growing. I feel like I'm being stretched. Like God is doing something within me. So
Well,
why deny the
won't he do
opportunity?
it? There you go.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again to Zaneta for sitting down with me. I know it's been a while since I released an episode, just been moving and all kinds of crazy stuff, and we'll have to do a little episode on all the updates in my life lately. So thank you. This was originally recorded in February and I'm posting it in May, but life on life's terms. So I hope you have enjoyed this podcast episode. If you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, as well as share with your friends and family. We're on pretty much every podcast platform: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it, we're there. All of those great places. So please share it. And visit our website, thevictorypodcast.com. There you can subscribe to our Patreon page. You can also look at our merchandise and support in that way. In this episode, as I do every episode, every problem has a solution. It's whether you're willing to do the work to find it. Let's do the work and be victorious.